there's been a lot of generational curse on both sides of my family of having bad fathers, and I'm doing my very best to see that end with me. You know, that there doesn't need to be any more bad fathers in my family. Mark, what's up, dude? How are you, buddy? Long time.
Yeah, not bad at all, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. No, very little to no complaints.
Nice, man. What's going on? Where are you heading right now?
I'm just actually, my girlfriend is driving. We're gonna go park somewhere at her dad's place, not very far away, and then, yeah, that's what just was at the store later this afternoon. We're getting together for a family dinner at my sister's house. So I brought some cookies to take to my nieces.
Beautiful, man.
And I was just kind of hanging out after church. We went and had lunch, and now I'm here with you, buddy.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, really is. You know, it's like life is when we work at it and we deal with the bullshit, it works pretty good.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. What's
like I mean, it'd be ridiculous to think that like there's not bad moments or there's not times where it's a struggle to keep up, but just not allowing yourself to stay in them, and shit kind of tends to seem to work out.
Yeah. Well, we all get plagued by that too, right? Like that idea of like, oh, I thought I was getting better, and then all of a sudden you have a bad day and you're like, well, I thought that I was making progress. What's going on?
That's so true. That was me last Saturday. Like, I don't know what happened, or like there was nothing really that like I just one of those things where I was just like, man, there's maybe it's just a series of small things that happened, but I'm just like, dude, I'm like really got inside my head and like frustrated, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go on the longest bike ride I've ever gone on. And it wasn't like ridiculous, but I went like on a 20-mile bike ride. And like by the end of it, and by the time I got home, I'm just like, I don't even remember why I'm angry. I'm just really hot and tired and sweaty now. And like, I'm good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. 20 miles, dude. How long did that take you? Were you timing yourself at all, or?
I stopped at a friend's house, and like this friend of mine, he's a great dude, but like he's super into hot rod, like real old school traditional hot rods, and he's been building them as long as I've known him, and he's probably like 4 or 5 years older than I am. So, and I've known him for a long time, but he recently at my kid's high school, he is like the shop teacher there, and they built a 34 Ford coupe called the Taco Coupe, and because it was folded in like a taco, and he had these kids like bang it all out, fix the metal. It's got a wicked, like, I don't know if you're familiar, but like what they call a Bonneville chop. So the chop on it's like 10 inches. So like, wow. I mean, you're talking like a 9-inch front windshield. So they actually took the car down to a big race and out in the salt flats.
Wow.
And like the whole high school kid, like it's pretty awesome. But that day he had posted on his Instagram account that he just found this car that has this is like a 32 Ford that's got this crazy story. It's one of the original cars, like you know, I'm sure you're familiar with Von Dutch. It was one of the very first cars that like Von Dutch like painted prior to becoming like the Von Dutch that everybody knows. And so this car, he's been trying to get this car for like 25 years, and it's got all this crazy history with it. And so yeah, I ended up stopping. So it took me a while, but like, so the route had a whole bunch of hills, and then I'm like, wait, I'm like, I don't want to go back that way. That was way too many hills. So then I'm like, I took like this rural highway that goes back towards my house, and there's no shoulder, and everyone does like 70 miles an hour. And you're in the middle of nowhere. So people like, you're on a bike and you are absolutely inconvenient. I'm like, I'm like petrified of getting run over. But no, it didn't take me too long. I think it actually only took me about with the hills, about 20 minutes to go, like the 8 miles into the nearest town to where I live. And then it probably took me quite a bit longer on the way home, but I also stopped so I could get some water and talk to my buddy for a little bit.
That's nuts, man. You're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if your connection's stable there, but I think
Yeah, I have yeah, perfect connection.
could be
It might be
mine.
my headphones. I try maybe to make sure my Bluetooth is off. Sometimes it tries to connect to my watch and then it gets all um wonky.
I think I got you back now. Your audio was breaking up a little bit there, but I got you now, I think.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, man, what's been new? What's been going on in your life? I remember the last time you talked, you were just starting to make a shift into a different direction with your life, and now you've been working at that for a few months now, right? What's been going on with
Yeah,
that?
dude. Man. So I last time we talked, I think I was just getting ready to start school, right?
Yeah, you were just about to start it.
Yeah, so I started school. I took the summer off and getting ready to go back in 2 weeks, and that was awesome. I ended up on the dean's list both terms, so winter and spring. I pulled 3.96 in my or 3.97 my first term, and then a 4.0 my second. I'll go back. I should have my um, certified drug and alcohol counseling certification for the CDAC 1 is what it is. I should have that by the end of winter term this year. I hope or either end or winter or spring. Can't remember right now. That went really well. And through that, um, a chance encounter has me with a woman that is now my coworker. We ended up talking at the gym, and I am working for a company, a nonprofit called Lutheran Community Services um, in McMinnville, and I am a case manager and a parent coach working in recovery homes, and then also out in the community with people who need assistance learning how to be better parents because the state has stepped in and said you're an unfit parent.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, it's awesome. And something like that was a huge victory for me is that for the first time in a long time, I covered all my bills um, on the first of the month without having to borrow money or ask for help or so
Wow,
man,
man.
life is great. I got a great woman. Her name is Hannah. She's also in recovery. I don't know, man. It's just I think that's it's all too often, and I'm probably one of the people who's most guilty of this, is that like we want these instant gratification, especially as a former addict. You want that instant rewards, and we live in a society that demands instant rewards. Like we're information, communication, all of it is available to us at a touch of a button, instant gratification. But man, it's just my life is just proving to me that if you stay in the fight long enough, you keep swinging, like you're bound to land some punches, like, yep, you're going to get knocked down, but you just don't allow yourself to ever be knocked out. And I think
Yeah,
that has just been echoing really loudly in everything I've been doing lately. And life is good.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. When you walk in the path of God, or you walk in alignment with the universe, however people want to look at it, it's just it's crazy how much steadily your progress works. Like it's not always up, it's not always down, it's just steady, just like, okay, we're seeing improvements. It's 1%, maybe 0.5% better today.
Exactly. And that's something today that was really awesome in church. Like this new series we're doing in church is like how to draw closer to Jesus, like how to get closer. And today we talked about, towards the end of Jesus's life at the Last Supper when he washes his disciples' feet. And something my pastor said that was really powerful is like when you're holding a towel, you can't point fingers, meaning like when you're in service to others and you're doing that servant's role, no matter whose feet you're washing, it's hard to sit there and go and be judgmental about, literally pointing fingers. I thought that was really poignant and rather deep. That like, man, that's something. I mean, that's why I love what I do, is because I get to be in service to people, especially like a lot of people I work with. They tend to have difficult pasts or And to be able to come into someone's life with, even if I mean, I can't speak religiously at work, obviously, because we get federal funding. So I can't, because of separation of church and state. So I can't, but just be able to walk into someone's life who is quite possibly at one of the lowest moments of their life, right? The state has stepped in and taken their kids. They have, the law is involved, like, and they just got told that, like, you're an unfit parent and you no longer have the rights to your children until you complete, I mean, stuff with me and lots of other agencies. And to just be able to come in there and not hold judgment, because sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's hard because you're like, I see why, I have the information of why you're in trouble or why your kids have gotten taken. And to let go of any preconceived notion and just meet people where they're at and literally just be willing to wash their feet and be like, we're going to get through this. It's a life-changing for me. I cannot speak for anybody else because I haven't been doing it that long, but man, it's life-changing. It makes you just, have to meet people with where they're at. And I think that's all too often it's a rather difficult thing to do because we have busy lives or we are judgmental or it's a combination of both. So I really try to be as a manifestation of that light and love of the Heavenly Father as I possibly can.
Yeah. It is so difficult not to cast judgment on other people, though, eh? It's such a difficult thing, man.
It really is. And especially, like, I'm not sure, like, I'm sure Vancouver has a similar issues with, just because politics and the region is, from Portland to Vancouver, and I've traveled between, but it's relatively similar, man.
Yeah.
It's like yesterday, for example, like I live about 15 minutes outside of the state capital of Oregon. And we were going out to Costco to go do some grocery shopping. And right along the main highway, like into town from where I live into West Salem, there's like a woman smoking fentanyl and just nodding off. Like, I mean, there's the highway, the sidewalk, and then a little green space. So you're like, I mean, and then just to not pass judgment and say this person's just a horrible human being, but like, how many people are just driving by and don't even it's just become so.
Oh yeah.
It's just become so like cliche or so normal. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, people just become so desensitized to it, and it's like this person is suffering. And we just drive by, and hundreds of cars are just driving by and probably not even paying attention. And like this person's just, and it's hard not to become cynical. And I'm sure it's similar because I see it every day, all day, every day.
Yeah,
it's sad. And as a recovering addict, it's hard not to be cynical, to be like, well, if I can do this, why haven't you changed? Or like, or not just be like cold or heartless towards it, because it's like, dude, you just have to make an effort. And, so many people are just so comfortable in discomfort. And I think that's what's sad.
Yeah. It's like this idea of like, it's uncomfortable, but it's not uncomfortable enough to warrant change. It's just uncomfortable enough to stay there. But that's like the same as like people's relationships, people's jobs, like anything. Like people stay in a shitty job for far too long because it's the exact same situation.
Exactly. It's funny that you said that because I was actually like, we have my girlfriend and I have this book of like all sorts of questions to ask each other. I mean, because she's very into personal growth. I mean, she's a wonderful human being, and I'm very blessed to have her in my life. But that's one of the things we were talking about. Is like growing up, I was never pushed to like take leaps of faith or take risks. Like the risks I was taught to take were dangerous, not healthy risks. My parents stayed in uncomfortable jobs because that's what they thought they deserved, or they stayed in unhealthy relationships and because that's what they thought they deserved. And that's what as we were talking about, that's the one thing I really want to stress to my kids. Like, don't be afraid of failure and don't be afraid to take calculated risks. Like, don't do unnecessarily risky things like, throw yourself off a bridge or, pardon my language, but don't do dumb shit. I've done enough, I've done enough of that for all of us, but like, go out there and take a risk, go to school across the country, or go, save up your money and go backpack across Europe, or go on a trek through the Holy Land. Like there's such a world of opportunity out there, and all too often, like especially as parents, we put those fears that we have and we instill them in our children, and most of the time I think we just do it unconsciously or subconsciously, um, because those same fears and insecurities they get passed down. Like we don't even know we're doing it. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until like I became open and aware of that I'm like, oh man, I need to like readjust how I'm parenting and the way I communicate with my kids so that they don't think that this, they don't keep repeating those same cycles of self-doubt and insecurity.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely is like something that is generational, and it's awesome that you're thinking that way. And I'm sure that you had probably a similar upbringing to me where it's like very like kind of uh I wanted to say conservative, but I don't mean politically. I mean like just conservative parents where they're like, yeah, everything you get, you have to earn, and then you have to cherish it. Like it's like you don't want to lose it. Like everything is so precious that you don't want to get rid of it and try something new. Like it's like you
Yeah.
like I remember my dad's rule, and I still see truth to this, but it's just one of the rules that we're talking about of like you can't quit a job until you have the next one lined up. Like this fear of scarcity consistently. And it obviously like there's benefits to it because you don't want to be unemployed. You don't want to be like fucked. You don't want to be lost. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like you don't want to be too scared that you're not trying new things and trying new opportunities. Like, uh, too scared to look like a fool to try new
Yeah.
things.
And I think that was and that what you just said, too scared to look like a fool. I think that was one of the things that was probably subconsciously like just injected into my head. Even though I didn't spend a lot of time with my bio father, but my stepdad and my mom, like, you know, get a good job, stay comfortable, and work there for 25 years.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's like just work hard and just, scrape. But like I think that like work, don't get me wrong, work is important, having purpose is important, but finding what your purpose is, like doing something that brings meaning to your life, especially because we do spend so much time at work. And I think, as I look back on where I was 3 or 4 years ago, or even 10 years ago to where I'm at now, like it'd be really, I would think that a lot of people go, well, man, if you could have done this differently, or if you could have done that differently. But I'm like, I look at it now and I'm like, I'm so grateful for all of it, all of it, the heartache, the darkness, the depression, the suicide, all of it, because it brought me to where I'm at today. And I know what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know without that experience if I would know what I'm supposed to do. Like, my ultimate goal in school is I want to be a mental health therapist. Um, I want to do the certified drug and alcohol counseling because it's a shorter duration of schooling, and it gets me to help working with the community I feel most connected to and want to serve. And I think that's the truth. And you don't have to be an addict to want to help addicts, or you don't have to have been homeless to want to help homeless people. But if you have overcome something traumatic like addiction or homelessness or domestic or left a domestic violence situation and learned how to change your life, like I think that like as survivors of those things, it is our duty to share that. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean in a way of a job or for monetary purposes, but if you can do both, then I feel like that's what we should do. Like our stories, our our strengths can be the inspiration that somebody else needs to get out of it, or it can be little nuggets of wisdom, excuse me, little nuggets of wisdom that save somebody from going down the same path. Maybe instead of them spending 10 or 15 or 20 years in addiction, they're like, wow, this guy's telling us, this person's speaking truth. And I've only been doing this for 2 years. I don't want to end up where they did. So maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think that it's so beautiful that you found like kind of your purpose, your mission in life. I think that that's like the biggest struggle for man. I can only speak for men, but I'm sure women feel the exact same kind of pressure of just like, how do I make this life worth it for myself? Like if I'm gonna, I remember thinking to myself, like, if I'm gonna go through like life and have to go through the adversity and the suffering and the toughness that life has, like, what's the point? What's the purpose? Like, why am I actually doing this? Like, I remember thinking that so many times. And I think a lot of people feel like they have to have that at all times in their life. Like, they're like, oh, but I don't find fulfillment in my job. I don't find fulfillment in what I do. And I think that when you find a purpose, like, it kind of translates into all things of your life. Like, I know one of the best examples of that, I talked to Zach from the Plaid Jacket Philosopher. He's got his own podcast, and he's an electrician in Alberta. And
Mm-hmm.
he talks a lot about, like, he's like, not, he'll say things like, like running wires and pulling wires and drilling holes through studs, like prefabbing all these electrical components. Like, those aren't the things that I'm passionate about, but it gives me the financial ability to take care of my children. And he's got 4 young boys, and it's like, that's his purpose. Like, his purpose is his family, and he knows what he's doing and what he makes sacrifices for. So on days when he goes to work and he's like, I'm not feeling motivated, I'm not feeling good about myself, I don't feel good about this in my life, whatever it could be, it's like, no, I've got this purpose, and I need to create a good life for these 4 boys and my wife, keep food on the plate. Like, that's his purpose that keeps him going. And when you have a purpose beyond yourself, just anything, like, it could be anything, but having a purpose beyond yourself is like, that's where it's going to help you get through those tough times. Like you were saying, like Saturday last week.
Yeah, I think that's just it. Is that like all too often, especially like it's like I don't from my experience, right, with my stepdad, like he did that, but he despised the job that he did. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't where he wanted to be doing. He wanted it, like, from my understanding of like having conversations with him and others, like he really wanted to farm because that's what his family did. But he's he's a very mechanically inclined person. He's a big foreman at a mechanical foreman at or was, I should say, he's retired now at the steel mill. And um but he did provide. But I think there's a sense where sometimes especially as men that like at least from my generation and maybe a little older, like providing became such a like the ultimate goal, right? Just be a provider, just be a provider. But like somewhere along the line, they forgot the nurturing. And I think where you're with the man you were speaking about, he's grasped the nurturing. It's like, yes, I get to go to this job that some days I may not like, but it allows me to have the finances to nurture my family, not just provide, but like that nurturing aspect for men, especially as fathers, we weren't taught how to nurture. We weren't like the important role of the father and the family. Somewhere along the line became just about being able to go to work and but like people need their fathers, they need their husbands. And like, it is about being able to provide and put food on the table, but it's also about being able to love, nurture, share life lessons, be there for baseball games, be there for soccer games or football games or whatever you're into, band, like being able to be present in their lives is, I made a lot of mistakes early on in fatherhood, and one of them was overworking
Yeah, yeah.
at a time, like I was working because I wanted to provide. I liked what I did. And I think my son was probably like, I was a chef. I was a chef by trade for most of my adult life. And I think I had worked like, I don't know, 7 to 10 days in a row, like long 12, 16-hour days. And my son was like, Dad, when am I going to see you again? And I was just like, what am I doing? That was like, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I sacrificing? Where's that line between providing and sacrifice? Where do you draw that? And I think right now what I'm so grateful about where God has me going is that like not only am I able to provide for my family better than I ever have, but I'm also like feel like I'm serving a purpose far greater than myself. And I think I think when you find that purpose, I mean, that's what life's all about. Because all too often we just go through life going, I have, too many people just go through life with like thinking they have no purpose or their life doesn't matter. And you wouldn't have been created if your life didn't matter or you didn't have purpose.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think that nurturing that you're talking about, like the balance between like working and being there to nurture your family as well, like, do you think you can have one without the other? Do you think they're intertwined that way, or like because it's so easy to go to either side of the extreme of like, oh, I'm going to work 80-hour weeks and I'm going to make sure my kids have food in their belly and a roof over their head, but maybe you're never around. Or there's the opposite of like, I'm going to work 20-hour weeks or 15-hour weeks and I'll always be around, but it's like, yeah, but then when the bills come around, what's going to happen? Do you think you can have one without the other? Or do you think you need both?
I think you got to try to figure out how you balance both. And I think like it's anything else. I think that there's times when the pendulum needs to swing further in one direction than it does the other. Like I know, like early on in my journey, I prioritized healing my relationship with my children more than I did working because that's just what the way it worked out, and that's just how I felt like I needed to spend that time. And then as our relationships healed, I started working, I started working more, and I'm like, hey, I even told the kids, when I when I went back to school, I'm like, I'm going to be gone a lot. I'm working 2 jobs and I'm going to school full time. Like I feel like we're in a good enough place, and you guys are old enough now that like you don't need me here as much as I have been. I had that but my kids are old enough to have that conversation and grasp what I was trying to get at. But I think it is. I think there are probably times, and if you don't have a significant other who's involved, like yeah, there might be times when you have to be like, hey, this is going on at home. I need to be able to like step away for a little bit, or things in home are running really well, and I need to start building that nest egg and that that security blanket of like, in case stuff does fall apart, that you're like, hey, I have 2 months worth of rent and groceries set aside. In case I think like it's super cliche, and I'm sure you've heard it said on your show 1,000 times, and in everything you've read, you've heard it said 10,000 times. It's all about balance, and as cliche as it is, and it's I hate it because it gets drummed in, and it just gets said far too often. But literally, it really is about balance, and like a lot of times balance is it is a razor's edge. And sometimes you make a mistake, you go too far one way, and you got to be aware of that and pull it back because I know that um, as children, it's nice having your father around or your mother. Like there's a lot of you can provide. And I listen to a lot of people's testimonies and stories, and you can provide a lot of everything, monetarily speaking, the nice home, they'll be able to afford the best colleges, the nicest cars, and you can have everything. But if there isn't that bond, kids will still go and find things to be bonded to. And all too often when we're adolescents, the things that we choose to go be bonded to aren't usually the best for us. And so I think, there has to be that there has to be that balance.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree because I've seen both sides of that. We all grew up with someone who, their parents took care of them financially, but were never around. And then you hear about them talk about it, once you get
Yeah.
into your 20s and 30s of just like that connection that they're missing. And it's even, I think even if you have a good upbringing and you have like your parents around, there's always sometimes you see one of those families that's just like all the siblings are so well connected and they joke around so much, and you're like, wow, they're all friends. Like they're
Right.
all like dude, it's again, it's one of those things where like comparison is the thief of joy. But one of the
True
things
that.
one of the things you said, man, that caught my attention that it's really cool. It gives me good insight about you is just like how the humbleness to have that conversation of like, okay, this is excuse me, sorry. Like just having the conversation with your kids and being upfront and honest of like, okay, you're not going to see me around much. There's a lot of shit that I have to take care of. Like let me know if you need anything from me. Like there's a lot of people, and like I could see even myself included in this, where it's like it's pride can get in the way of having those conversations with people that depend on you to be like, yo, like um we're not like, the ship isn't sinking or anything, but I'm gonna have to put in a bit of work. Like this is gonna be some tough couple of months for me. Like having the ability to have that conversation honestly and humbly without like pride getting in the way, man. Like that speaks a lot about who you are, man.
I think that's just it. Is it like, well, I guess my son is 16 and he's 16 going on like 42, and my daughter is 13 and then going on 30, and then they've experienced a lot, and like I try not to ever glorify my past or share too much, but I want to be able to have those open and honest dialogue conversations with them, because I don't want to feel like their voices don't matter, that their opinions don't matter, that
Right.
that they're being heard and they have a voice. And all I think is parents, far too often, we don't a lot like, and I'm not saying you need to like take your kid's opinion and what they're saying and then like do what they ask or what they say, but to at least recognize that and sincerely recognize it and have that open conversations and listen to what they're saying and ask them if they're okay. And then if they say they're not, then like, okay, then how do we fix this? How would you like to go about changing this and what works best for everybody? Because, you know, I think far too often we either get trapped in the busyness of life, you get trapped in your addictions, whatever they may be, and it's really easy to push that relationship aside. And there's been a lot of generational curse on both sides of my family of having bad fathers, and I'm doing my very best to see that end with me. You know, that there doesn't need to be any more bad fathers in my family.
Yeah, that's huge, man. Be a cycle breaker.
Yep.
That's huge, man. What so how's the new gig been treating you? How have you found it? How have you
Oh, dude, it's I've never felt more. I mean, it's really different because I've never had a desk job. Like a big part of my work is like behind the desk. But at 43, it doesn't feel bad to like slow down a little bit and not be on my feet 10 or 12 hours a day. Um, I have certain amounts of flexibility as far as scheduling goes. Um, which is nice. If I need to, if push comes to shove, I can do Zoom calls with clients. So if my kids are sick or there's something that comes up, I mean, that's an option for me. Um, I have a lot of things in a job like benefits and health insurance and stuff like that I've never really had. And so, man, I got my own laptop and a work phone. It's like it's weird to have a white collar job. I'm not going to lie, but I honestly, I enjoy it. I think it's, obviously physical fitness. I'm still in the gym 5 or 6 days a week. I actually still work at my local gym a couple days a week, early in the mornings, mainly to keep that gym membership and to help make my car payment. Um, so it's not like I sit back and I'm just sitting in the chair, but I really enjoy it. There's a whole new challenge to, like I kind of stated earlier, meeting somebody who's going through a very difficult situation, and maybe similar to something I've experienced, maybe completely out of the realm of what I've dealt with in my own life, but meeting them somewhere, and often, before I go to their house as I'm driving there or wherever we're meeting, I'll pray. I'm like, God, just show me how I'm supposed to reach this person. And sometimes it's just listening, and
right.
then like hearing what they're saying, picking up on their, and like really listening, not just to the words that they're saying, but see those nonverbal cues, right? And then figure out, how do I reach this person? And sometimes it's just with praise, like seeing them do something good and be like, hey, by the way, I know everyone else is telling you you're doing this and this and this wrong, but man, you're really great with your son when I see you work, or you have the potential to be a very great and loving father or a very great and loving mother. And to see them shift their dynamic and let down the defensive wall. And when that can happen, then I can start to come in and be like, hey, here's areas we need to work on. Here's some tools I can bring you. And then maybe this will help change this pattern. Because again, a lot of times, like, especially when it comes to parenting, we just parent the way we were shown.
Right.
And a lot of times, like we weren't, like a lot of people weren't shown right. And that's kind of, chance to recorrect. But no, man, I love what I do. And it's nice to get my foot in the door of like in the profession I want to get into, for the long term.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had Like any experiences that have kind of like set you like made you feel like, oh, like I don't know if I can do this, like maybe this is like a lot of pressure, or you haven't gotten there quite yet,
And
or
yeah, no, I've only been on the job a month, but yeah, I like there's been a couple of cases that I've had where I'm just like, dude, I don't know. Uh, but then I'm just like, all right, God, like you put me here for a reason, and this is the person you had me work with, and so yeah, I'm not gonna like. There's a couple of times I'm just like, it seems very daunting and overwhelming because you're like, how am I supposed to teach this person how to do this? Because the odds are, on paper look astronomical, but you know, there's I don't know, in that same breath, um, there was a point in time in my life that even being alive or being here still seemed astronomical and wasn't going to happen. And here I sit, healthier than I've ever been. So, yeah, that's something that I've experienced, and I experienced right away because I pretty much was like, hey, your had to do like three different background checks and it all came in at one time, which were they were like, that's really weird. Like that it usually takes like at least a month to get all three cleared. And I got them all three cleared within like a day apart. And just as a woman was going on vacation, and they're like, cool, you can have her caseload while she's gone for two
wow.
weeks. I'm like, I'd only been on the job for like literally 2 weeks at this point. And they're like, here you go. And so I got handed the keys, so to speak. And um, I feel like I get a lot of good feedback from the people I work with and the people, the clients I help. So I feel really good about it. But sometimes it is new, and there's stuff that's like it's hard not to like, as I said earlier, hold personal judgment on it. But it's not my job to judge or condemn. My job is there to coach and help.
Yeah, yeah. How much of how much of what you're doing has to do with like what you were studying and some of the tools you learned there, and how much of it is just like intuitive from, going through your own recovery and kind of learning how people dealt with you as opposed to how you want to treat other people? Like how much of it is intuitive versus like uh using tools that you've learned in school?
I think it's like I honestly want to say it's probably like really close to 50-50. Um, Especially because I took like an introductory to counseling class, and no, I'm not a counselor. I am there to listen, and I'm there to steer conversation. And that class was, I think at some point in time as adults, like what was taught in that class and how it was taught, like everybody should do that because we would actually hear we wouldn't just hear each other, we'd actually listen to one another. And
Right.
so much of listening isn't just hearing what somebody's saying. It's those, like I said, it's paying attention to the little subtle cues, or hearing what they're not saying, or paying attention to the words that they repeatedly say, and then try to ask them good why questions of, well, not just why, but like, well, how come this is this way, or why do you perceive it this way? As far as that part of it has been really helpful. I had to do a a mandatory reporting class. And so that was really helpful. I'd say it's 50-50. And some of it's intuition. Some of it is like, okay, I recognize this in this person, and how, just like you said, well, how would you want to be talked to in this moment in time? Or how would you not want to be talked to in this moment in time? Because far too often, a lot of most of these people most of my clients that I deal with, are involved with multiple agencies. And a lot of these agencies, um, a lot of these um, agencies uh, tend to have a lot of clients, and so they get just kind of treated like work and not like a person, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
like a number in the machine kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I think like, especially when you have so much stuff coming at you, you have a lawyer, you have DHS, you have. And DHS is, I don't know what it is, like Department of Human Services, or CPS is, Child Protective Services, or I'm not sure what it is in Canada, but that's what DHS refers to.
Yeah,
So you
I
have,
think
and then,
I
go,
can't
sorry.
remember. No, no, I can't remember what ours is.
But then there's always then they're ordered to go see mental health, or they have to do treatment, and they have to go to drug court, or et cetera, or domestic violence classes, and it's just like, then you're just inundated with, and then all too often, like, it's so normal for us as humans to focus on the negative, and so I try to just, work with what there is, and bring something. I try to dwell on the positive that they're doing more than the negative, and that seems to work.
Yeah, yeah. It can be such a stressful gig, man, because they're just like they feel like they just have to appease you and do whatever makes you happy. They're like, I'm just going through the steps of what you guys want me to do. Like they don't want to be there.
Yes.
It's not like somebody's like paying for therapy and like wanting to be there, wanted like it's completely opposite. Like it's like you're forcing me to do this in their eyes. Like that's how they view it.
Yeah, and that's where learning to listen to people, learning how to talk to somebody, but also like that was something that was really helpful in a class was that like we're not there to help, we're there to guide, right? Because I
Right.
can't help you. You can't help me, and I can't help you, and you can't help whoever, and that person can't help whoever, but we can guide each other. We can and so learning how to offer, for lack of a better term, help, but in a guidance way, like, hey, changing the narrative instead of being like, hey, you need to go do this. Well, have you thought about, or like, have you thought about, like, okay, that you want to see a mental health therapist. Well, you probably need to talk to your lawyer, but instead of going and see the mental health therapist that DHS has sent to you, and then you're worried about them already having judgment about your case, right? Like, why don't you go see your own therapist on your own and find one, and then you can dictate the conversation, and they won't already have any preconceived notions of you. So helping change that narrative, especially with men. Like, I don't know about you, but I know before I actually really found a therapist I liked, the idea of like, even when I was like, I knew I needed to see a therapist and I just kind of rushed into it and it didn't go well. But then, like, actually doing my homework and finding somebody that I could relate to on a spiritual level, plus that I just felt comfortable with, was been a game changer for me.
Yeah, it definitely is. I don't know. I agree. I think especially as men, it can be real difficult trying to find somebody that you can click with, that you can feel vulnerable around. Because I know that, as cliche as it sounds, again, like it's kind of one of those things where like men just have such a tough time being vulnerable, being open about what's going on under the hood. And
Agreed.
it's that's a game changer. I think that's kind of a cool solution of like, yeah, don't go with who they give you, like just find your own, like
Yeah,
find someone else that you feel comfortable with, that you can actually get help from. There's like, if you're gonna actually do it, you might as well receive the benefit from it instead of just
agreed.
doing it just to do it. Do you see like,
Agreed.
I was about to ask, do you see like people kind of just going through the motions and doing things just for the sake of doing them? And you're like, bro,
90% of the time.
you're like,
Like I said, I haven't been there a long time, but yeah, a lot of people just want to get done with the 12 weeks that they have to deal with anyone from my agency, or however long the case is opened with
right.
DHS. They just want to be done so they don't have to do it anymore. And that's just all they're trying to do. And it's like, I want, obviously you're not going to help everybody, but man, if I can usher in a little bit of guidance and change in one or two people, then man, this job is super rewarding.
No kidding, man.
And I think kind of back to what you're saying earlier is like one thing I've learned, that I would spout as 100% fact is there's no growth without vulnerability.
Right.
Like, you are not ever going to change without having to be vulnerable.
100%, man.
I'm not talking about running around like a bleeding heart and just spewing your most vulnerable moments all over everybody, but having a safe place to be vulnerable, like, and sharing that and feeling secure in that that's where change starts.
Yeah, and it's crazy, man, how many people like go so long without hearing somebody tell them, "Hey, you did a good job," or "Hey, you did well. You did this well." or just like hearing anything positive. Like I know you were kind of talking earlier about the similarities between, Oregon and British Columbia here where I live. And man, like what you were describing is so on point to what we have here, like on the downtown east side. Like I had a buddy from LA come by a few months back, and I'm like, yo, do you want to go see the war zone that is the downtown east side? Like kind of making a joke about it. And we're going through a like an intersection, and the light turns yellow, and I'm kind of like halfway through the intersection with my truck anyways, like the nose of my hood is in the intersection, so I'm just gonna go through. And RCMP right behind me, cop flags me. He's like, yeah, pull over. And I'm like, what's going on, man? Like it wasn't red or anything like that. He's like, yeah, just give me your license and your insurance, your registration. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like it is what it is. And so I give him my paperwork, and my buddy from LA just looks at me. He's like, so let me get this straight. That guy right there is smoking meth from a pipe, and you get pulled over for going through a yellow? And I'm like, yep.
Yep.
That's like,
Dude,
dude, I'm like, dude, that's like normal. Like it's like there's always someone like that on every corner, like on the downtown east side for sure.
I just had this exact same conversation. My son has my old rig, and it's still registered in my name. And he went through like they have speed traps that are radar enforced, like cameras.
Yeah, we had
And
the same thing.
yeah, he went through and got flagged for a ticket. And he's like, how is it that this ticket that I got is more expensive and I'm actually getting in trouble with it? But like, you can have 2 grams of fentanyl, or you can be in the park around a bunch of kids just smoking fentanyl or meth and not get in trouble at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the similarities. It's like, I don't know how you change it. I often, when people ask, my opinions, a lot of people know I'm in recovery, and I share it. I'm like, I know that like Portugal has very similar drug laws to Oregon, where like Oregon is the first state to decriminalize all drugs, where like anything, like any drug, 2 grams or less, like hard drug wise, is a misdemeanor.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
we
know,
have the exact same thing now. Our
right, but
laws
I'm sure,
changed.
I'm sure that like I'm I'm assuming the reason you're having that same problem is that like all this great brain trust that went into writing this law didn't write any laws about like public intox. Like in Portugal, if you were to like be smoking meth out on the street corner, or fentanyl on the street corner, or being schizophrenic high on meth, like you would get locked up. And there are very strict laws about public intoxication, using in public. And like that just wasn't even a thought or concept. And there's places in Portland where it's just, well, I just read something the other day that the Max, which is like public transit trains in
Mhm.
Portland, the University of Washington and Oregon State University did a test where they went into every Max train, and they found trace residues of smoked fentanyl and smoked crystal meth in every train.
Jeez, man, that's
So
brutal.
yeah, you're just like, right, like, so you, who's a law-abiding citizen, gets a ticket. Yeah, you could be homeless and smoke fentanyl and or meth and just on the street corner and be like, not even, no one cares. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It seems silly to me.
I gotta say, I didn't actually get a ticket. He let
Oh,
me off with a warning, but it,
awesome.
it it was still like, why am I being pulled over when there's a guy smoking like crack right there?
Yeah, it's. I
And
don't
like
know.
I'm kind of used to it because I've done some volunteering on the downtown east side. So like I've been immersed in it before, but my buddy was just like awestruck. He's like, "What? What?" He's like just stunned. I'm like, "Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the way
it's
she goes." Like they at some point I feel like they're just like, I can't stop it. Like, what am I gonna arrest this guy for smoking crack on the sidewalk and then
right. And I'm
walk
gonna have to go arrest 100 other people and
walk
within a
15
1 block
steps?
radius.
Yeah.
Yeah, and arrest somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same over there, but we have like you can buy like cocaine or any of those things like in dispensaries now, like they're on the
Oh,
downtown east side. Like you can just walk into a store and get. So I guess the idea behind it is like, oh, you know what you're getting, like it's a tested supply kind of
oh,
thing.
Yeah, they don't have that yet, which I mean, in some aspects, I mean, it would be nice, but like, I don't know, man. Like, it's funny how your priorities shift as you shift and grow. And drugs are bad. I always kind of thought it was a victimless crime, even when I was doing them or selling them or whatever, until you really see how the drags that it creates on society. And, you know, when you feel unsafe to go into a public park that public funds pay for because it's full of people smoking fentanyl or schizophrenic people or there's human feces all over the place, like that's not fair to the masses to cowtail to the few.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like just because life has been hard on you, life is hard on everybody. Like you shouldn't just get to dictate um your will upon everybody else because you feel that's your right. And I don't know. I hope something changes. I feel like um there's a huge part of the homeless population that comes here from other states, and I've always heard rumors that other states just um bust them here. But I get this feeling that like people talk and then there's news and people are like, "Oh, I can be a junkie and not face any legal problems in Oregon. So why don't I just come here?"
Yeah, yeah. I know Vancouver is kind of similar that way because we're like the only province with a forgiving winter time. So like a lot of
Hmm.
people take the train over to Vancouver because it's like, oh, I can live outside and not have negative 50-degree weather. Like that, I think I'll take that.
Right. But it still gets pretty dang cold up there. I mean, you get a lot more snow in Vancouver than we do down here. It's
Yeah,
not
absolutely. But man, like I was just in Saskatchewan, which is like a couple provinces over. I was just there
right.
for a wedding last week, and it was like, man, their summers are like their air quality rating, like it was bad here a couple years ago with wildfires, and we got up to like an 8. The iPhone says like 8 or a 9 air quality warning. In
Right.
Saskatchewan right now, where I was in Saskatoon, is like an 11. And then the
Yeah.
guy that's driving me around is like, yeah, in 2 months from now, it's going to be negative 50 with wind chill because it's just the flat plains of Saskatchewan. So I'm like, man, I'm happy. Like the worst it got here was, I think, negative 10 last winter, and they're dealing
Right.
with negative 50. I think like it's a lot more forgiving for sure, man. Negative
Absolutely.
50, you open your mouth and your tongue freezes off, man.
Yeah, dude, that's so cold. I don't know if you saw that, like when all of the American West was having that massive heat wave like month and a half ago, and all
Yeah.
those people were driving into Death Valley to like stand next to the thermometer because it was supposed to break like the world record for hottest day ever. And I'm like, that's the last place on earth I just want to be like, I'm gonna go drive there and go stand out next to a thermometer that says 133 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm like, that there's nothing about that that says so I want to spend my money for that.
Dude, that's insane.
It
Um,
is insane.
but yeah, in terms of I just had to look up 133 degrees Fahrenheit to convert it to Celsius, and it's 56. That's insanity. I've never
Yeah,
seen anything that hot.
that's so hot. Like, and that was not atmospheric temperature. That was the whatever the ground point temperature was. I'm like, that's insane. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of buddies who were over in like and fought in Iraq and they were stationed in Saudi Arabia. Like that's where the main base was. And like with atmospheric or the air temperature was like 125. And they're just like, dude, that was in full camo and with the 25 or 30 pound ruck on too. So I was
That's
just like, but
insanity, man.
yep.
But yeah, I think in terms of regulation, like I think I don't know, I'm not always super optimistic with it because like the one thing I always have to remember is and remind myself is like the people that make these types of regulations aren't the type that like go, they're not going to the park and seeing like these types of people. They don't deal with the same, like their kids go to like little private sections and they have these massive backyards. Like they don't deal with public. It's the same thing with like people that, um
Agreed. 100% with what you just said.
Like it's the same as like the people that, you know, the regulators for firearms and police and everything like that. Like they can say, oh, this is what's best for the public if we do this with the police force or increase the amount of, you know, whatever this is or restrict firearms. And then it's like, but you have private security that stays strapped everywhere you go. Like it's great.
Exactly.
It's great for you to be concerned about our safety, but you don't have to deal with the repercussions. Like maybe some of us could give our input, but it's the way like
I 100% agree with everything you just said. It, like there was this meme that went around locally, and it was like this really high end gated community up in the West Hills of Portland, because that's high dollar, high rent area. And they're like, and if you were to look straight down from this person's like driveway, right, there's just a massive homeless community. And it's like, yeah, of course you don't care about what's happening down here, and you'll pass whatever laws you think is fit because you don't actually have to see any of it.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're seeing now like I live in a suburb of Vancouver, just south of it. And so like I drive
We're
into
at, do you live in Surrey?
No, just in between actually. I'm in Richmond.
Okay.
And so I drive over there's one of the bigger bridges in Vancouver is the Oak Street Bridge. And
Hmm.
yeah, right under the Oak Street Bridge, there's like a grassy area there. And I literally the other day, I'm driving to work and I keep forgetting to mention this to my coworkers because it's kind of like crazy. But there's like, we're not talking like tents or tarped off area. Like I'm telling you, like this guy put in like a floor joist system and laid a subfloor and built walls up and then put building paper, put a roof on this thing, and then even has like gutter rails around the outside. I'm like, yo, this guy literally just built a house. Like it's almost like insane to me because it's like you obviously could work.
Yeah.
Like this guy's got skills. Like he's, you know, like we've hired guys with less skills than this. Like what the fuck? Like this
Dude, but
is
that's just it.
insanity.
It's like, dude, how when you're, and I'm speaking 100% from experience right now, when you are so high that you can't function, when you are like, and I'm not saying every homeless person
But bro,
is
that's
strong.
functioning.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like
dude,
that's
there's places like my girlfriend just moved in with us, but she was living up in Portland, and there was this exact same thing. I would like drive, like there was a kind of like right where you were saying, you'd come off I-5 over this bridge called the Powell. I can't think Powell's Bridge. I can't think of what it is. It doesn't matter. But there's a little green section between the interstate and the bridge, and this dude built like basically exact had a door, had walls, and I'm just like, and he had like a nice like Kawasaki Ninja. I'm like, it's either stolen or like this dude is doing something. I'm assuming like he's probably selling dope, but like, dude, you have a door and you have walls, like, like, like you have enough meat. Like, I thought the exact. I'm like, what is actually going on?
it's crazy though. I feel like almost though, maybe in the middle of the city, smack dab in the middle of the city, not really that cool. But
No,
I feel like it should be legal to just find some crown land and put a little spot on there. I think that
it
should honestly be legal. I
it
don't know
should
if it
probably.
is in the States, but
It's not because what like the federal government owns a vast majority of the land and like forests and stuff, and then if they don't own it, they end up selling it to like massive land
corporations.
companies like
Bill
warehouse like
Gates.
where
Bill
yeah, well,
Gates.
no, Warehouser, Georgia Pacific, like timber companies, and then those timber companies will subcontract that out to like the local logging outlets. And I'm sure it's really, I mean, I'm sure it's similar up there that like, yeah, so like when I first moved home from Portland, I worked for my buddy's dad's logging company for a little while till I could find a job cooking. And right before I started working there, they found some dude who had done just that, like who had gone out into the forest and cut down a bunch of trees and been living out there in this little cabin he built for like 18 months. And this was 20 years ago. But he ended up having to go to prison and had like $150,000 in fines for for vandalism for cutting down trees that weren't his.
That's crazy.
I mean, right? And that's like here. we are however many hundred years later that America had, almost 250 years later that we had fought a a revolutionary war to get away from the crown, and yet the deer and the fish and the trees are still the kings, so to speak.
That's
Like,
crazy,
you
man.
can't just go out and eat something because, you can't just take an animal out of season. And even if you hunt, you still have to pay the state and you have to be, all the
Oh yeah.
regulations and yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, you
I
have
don't
to
know.
get tags, you have to get licensed, you have to get
Yep,
every
all that.
yeah. Yeah, no kidding. And
How are
there's
you?
definitely me,
How are
man.
you
I'm
been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I usually we go to church on Sunday mornings, but we ended up just going to my buddy's farm and shooting trap all morning. So
Nice.
it's kind of a nice,
Nice.
relaxing morning. Uh,
Excellent.
yeah, just sitting on the tailgate, blasting pigeons all morning, plays.
Cool.
But yeah, man, I've been
Yeah, you
busy.
better you said Clays, right? The last thing you want is people hearing you say you just blasted a bunch of pigeons
Yeah,
all
no, no.
morning, get a bunch of hate mail.
Yeah, yeah. People that don't understand. Yeah, no, they
Yes.
were clays. They're just little discs, man. Relax.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just yeah. I love
But
that, man. That's excellent.
yeah, I we usually do go to church on Sunday mornings, but my buddy texted me last night. He's like, "You want to come by the farm tomorrow and shoot trap?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm in, man. Like I haven't shot my gun for a couple months now, so let's go." It's nice,
Yeah.
relaxing. Like it's fun because you're there with your buddy and I brought like my girlfriend along as well. But it's also relaxing because like you're just so focused for so long.
Hmm.
Like 2 hours just blows by. We were out there like 9:30 ish, nine.
Nice.
Yeah, other than that, man, we've just been working a lot. Like I do home renos and we've been busy all summer, beginning of the
Good.
fall. So
It hasn't
been
slowed down at all for you.
no, actually this year's been interesting because usually my cousin is my foreman. It's kind of a
Hmm.
family company. But he had to get surgery this year, and so he's been gone for the past 6 months, and he's about to come back. But the past 6 months, I've had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, so it's been a fun kind of half a year learning. Like I feel like I learned 10 times faster in the last 6 months than I've been in like the last like 4 years. Like I'm just like I'm absorbing so much more.
Awesome. It's funny how like just being thrust into a situation like makes you learn.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I learn well like with that whole sink or swim aspect of stuff. Like, because then it's like, especially if it's, kind of trial by fire, like you have to learn how to do it, and especially if it's on the job.
Yeah, it's so different doing something when you have somebody being like, okay, this is what we're going to work on today. Like, go and do this, 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 this. And then when you show up and you're the guy where you like, especially on a construction site, when you're the first person that shows up and you're like, fuck, what are we going to do today? I've got a plumber coming at 9 o'clock today. My electrician will be here at like 11. And then it's like, fuck, what am I gotta plan what people are gonna do today. Like it's not
Yeah,
just me now. I have to plan 4 other people's days today too.
right.
Like so it's been fun, man. It's been a lot of fun. And
Awesome.
yeah, just training in jujitsu and Teddy, my girlfriend, she does photography and website designs as well. And she just did her first wedding this summer, which
Cool.
a little bit outside of her experience. It was her first time doing it, but yeah, we got to do a little bit of traveling for that. Go out
Awesome.
to another province, fly over to there, and yeah, now she's
Awesome.
just been busy editing all the photos. It's been a busy little end of the summer, man. But I'm loving fall time is my favorite time of the year. I love the
Yep.
fall time, so
Me too. I
I'm
like the
stoked
fall
for it.
and I love the spring.
Yeah, it's like perfect. Spring is really rainy here in Vancouver, but the fall time, like it's still sunny out, but the air is nice and crisp. That's my
Crisp. It
favorite
cools down a
time,
little
man.
bit. Today has been pretty hot. It's been like fall had kind of set in. Like it's just been like today's probably in the like 80-ish degrees Fahrenheit. But it had been like, in the low 70s, but no clouds in the sky. The leaves are slowly starting to turn. The days are starting to get a little shorter. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
like it too.
We would be
So
like in Fahrenheit, we'd be like low 70s right now. Mid
yeah,
70s, low
right.
70s.
That's about what it's been here until the last couple of days, which has been just really nice.
It's t-shirt weather, man.
T-shirts and jeans, man. That's my, I think a pair of 501s and a t-shirt, and I'm pretty happy. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between our climates. I love fall until like November-ish, maybe even till I can deal with like the first month of winter. But like in the valley, we don't get any snow unless it gets cold, but we just do lots of rain. A lot of
Yeah.
gray skies and rain.
Yeah. As we I don't know if you guys probably don't ever think about Vancouver, but we here we call it Raincouver. Like it's
Yeah.
just rainy, rain
I
city,
love
man.
I love Vancouver. I prior to 9/11, I used to go up to Vancouver a lot because it was cheaper to go up to Canada than to like throw a party. Like if I could have a 3-day weekend, I was probably going to Vancouver. I'd hop on the train and come up there at 19 and be able to drink and not have to have the law breathing down my neck.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I spent a lot of time in Vancouver,
That's
specifically West Hastings.
yeah. Well, now it would have been East Hastings, man.
Yeah, okay.
It's migrated. They slowly just keep pushing it out of the city
Ugh.
and out of the
That's
downtown core.
yeah, that's kind of how it happens. It's except in Portland, it's weird that like the downtown area of Portland has become one of the worst areas of like homelessness and yuck, especially like near Chinatown. And Chinatown is like basically in the heart of downtown, and it's not safe. And like like dude, people vandalizing buildings and smashing out glass, and it's pretty yucky. It's really
Yeah.
sad. Like Portland used to be a really pretty city, and it is just not anymore.
Yeah, I said, dude, actually really crazy. One of my best buddies just moved to Portland last month.
No, crazy.
Yeah.
We're at.
No, I haven't talked to him too much, but I know he had some buddies down there, so he just ended up picking up and moving down there. But he yeah, maybe I'll see if I can connect you guys. I think
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
you guys would love each other, man. He's
That'd be
super dope,
great.
dude.
Yeah, I would love that.
Super
Please
dope,
do.
dude. It's kind of weird too how you said it's like right by your Chinatown, and like the downtown east side is literally a block away from our Chinatown as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Well, all of it's bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still pockets of like Southeast Portland where it's higher rent and it's nice, and there's obviously the West Hills, but I mean, it's like so in Salem, it's like the closest town to where I actually live. Like, 'cause I live out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and I mean, it's bad in Salem too. It's just, and Salem tends to be a little bit more conservative than Portland, and it's, I'm not all like saying that like, oh, all we should do is put homeless people in prison, but like work camps like they did during the Great Depression, like on the job training, like something to teach people some skills and to like give them that attaboy that they need to like maybe change their lives because it's gross.
Yeah,
All of it's gross. I mean, I don't have any other descriptive word to say other than it's gross. I feel bad for the people who it's affected. I feel bad for the homeowners that have to live near it. I feel bad for the business owners who are affected by it. Like none of it is fair or good. And it just seemed like in the last like 2 or 3 years, or maybe 3 years, probably, it's just been like this hand grenade of them. Like it just became such an overwhelming problem and no one knows what to do with it.
yeah. I mean, it's I feel like it happens all across North America, and it's the exact same story for every single city, whether it's like New York, LA, Portland, Vancouver. I'm sure parts of Toronto are the exact same. Like I hear a lot more about it from like American cities, but it's like, yeah, you'll have like the $2,800 a month rent, and then right next
Mm-hmm.
to a Versace store, and then right next to a safe injection site, which is right next to like six people that are overdosing on the street. And it's
Yeah,
like, why do I smell human feces and burnt crystal meth? And you're
right.
just like,
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's just it's out of control.
it's crazy, and I don't think I know every solution either. Like, cause pushing people like, okay, yeah, you got to go 3 blocks this way, and trying to push it away from the expensive rent. It doesn't solve the problem. I listen to a
No.
lot of stand-up comedy. Like it's one of the main things I listen to is like podcasts and stand-up. And I was
Hmm.
listening to this one that was happening in Austin, Texas, and he's like, a lot of homeless people here, a lot of drug addicts. Like, what are you guys doing for that? And then before anyone in the audience replies, he goes, whatever it is, it's not working. Do something different. Like,
Yeah.
do something different. I don't know how your city deals with this, but this isn't working.
No.
Like I know, like and there is cool programs like what you were talking about, like because there's a place in Surrey that my mom goes to all the time, and she was telling me about it. It's like it's a halfway house, kind of like there's one guy that owns the place, and he's in the NA program or whatever, and
Hmm.
he takes people in and helps them get sober, and it's like connected to a bakery. So like once they finish, and there's like a butcher, a bakery, it's kind of like a little like a grocery store type of thing. And you can go to the butcher, and after people go through their program and they get sober, they have like direct into work experience where they like there's a butcher there, there's a bakery there, there's like produce section, and these people are like up in the morning slicing up meat and baking loaves of bread, and like
That.
my mom's there all the time. Like she goes there every weekend to go and grab like a pie or a loaf of bread, and it's a
Yeah,
pretty cool
that.
program, man.
But that, I mean, that's all. That's what that's. I mean, I don't would never even pretend to know how you fix this entire problem, but it's more programs like that that give people tangible skill that help people get back. Like something I try to say or I share when this subject comes up is it's like people need hand ups, not handouts,
100%.
because we get comfortable. We get you know like bears, man. Like bears will stop hunting wild game and they'll just go eat your garbage, because it's
Mhm.
an easy handout.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like giving someone a hand up like that, like here, we're gonna help you. Here's the rules you follow. You can't use drugs. We're gonna drug test you, but we're also gonna give you a place to live, and we're gonna teach you a skill on how to be a butcher. That's a great skill to have, and it's something that will pay to keep a roof over your head and food on the table, and it isn't just going around picking up trash. That's an actual trade.
Yeah, not just that, but it's like you're also gaining confidence. You get a way to make some
Yep,
money. You feel good. You have a reason, like some structure in your life, like a reason to be at a certain place at a certain time, and you get to interact with
absolutely.
other people. Like it's a culmination of so many things, and I think that is like a lot of the time, like people say like, oh, my work is like hurting my mental health because I have to go to this building and I have to do this thing and see these people I don't like. And it's like, I think an opportunity to make money and go to a job is better than like sitting at home and like watching Netflix. Like the idea of like, oh, I have to be at this place and I have people counting on me and I can make them proud if I do a good job. And, like I have an opportunity to make money, especially as men, like going back to the idea of like providing, like not having a paycheck coming in or not having the confidence of like if I need some money to eat,
Hmm.
like having a job is
I
like, dude,
do.
I'm good. Like, yeah,
I think for all human, like we were created to be productive, but a specific, and as a man, specifically speaking as a man, as men, dude, not feeling productive. And dude, that's part of what got, I mean, there's a lot that led me to, but that the lack of production in my life compounded my depression so bad. Like, and then you just start to feel worthless. And then, we are the story we tell ourselves. And so if you sit there and tell yourself you're worthless and you're not capable, I mean, you're going to live like you're worthless and not capable. Like that's absolutely right. Like having that purpose and having a routine and schedule are really important aspects of my recovery and how I heal.
so kind of like reflecting on your own journey, like going from where you just said, like you felt like you had no purpose, you had no reason, you had nothing, to like fast forward to what you're doing now. Was there like a point where you had like a definitive turning point where you're like, I think I can have a purpose?
Yeah, I mean, well, in that first year of sobriety, like just learning how to like manage my life somewhat again became important. But like I was in such bad physical shape that like I had was like before I can even like really try to do a job, I got to get down below 300 pounds. Like because at that point in time I had no other like I'd pretty much just done manual, like I was a cook or I've done manual labor. And like when you're struggling to breathe, you're not gonna be able to do manual labor. So I'm like, I got to get under 300 pounds so I can like be on my feet again. And once I got to there, I went and worked but then I was like, okay, I needed to like, I bounced between like two or three jobs real quick because mainly because I was still kind of crazy in my head, but I had a really hard time being around people because I had been such a recluse for so long that I didn't know how to acclimate back into society. So I was a janitor for like 9 months
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
worked by myself and it was the best thing I could have ever done because it allowed me to like work and feel productive. But it also gave me the ability to exercise and like slowly acclimate myself back into society. And I think that was it. It was just like I had so much going against me that, for that first year, I was just insane trying to fix everything at once, which was never going to happen. Like I need a job, I need money, I need my kids back, I need fix my relationship with my wife, I need a car, and blah 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 blah. And so I was just running around like a maniac trying to find like a solution that was never going to come. But I think that like the big one was for me was getting under 300 pounds. And once I got under 300 pounds, I'm like, okay, now you can start doing stuff again.
Yeah, there's like that barrier to entry there. But
Yeah.
I think
And there
even
is.
well, I was
I
gonna
think that,
say I think that we almost set ourselves like we almost set those things ourselves. That's
hmm
what I was trying to say.
yeah. And I think sometimes that's like, can be like in my own aspect, I was never late. Like I wasn't like, oh, I can't do this because of this, and sometimes I think we put off till tomorrow what we should be doing today. And I'm
Hmm.
not advocating that at all. Like for me specifically, because I was rather obese, I'm like, I physically cannot do what I know how to do to make money until I'm able to like, breathe. And so that became my job. Like, like don't get me wrong, I didn't just sit there and just magically go 300 from 350 pounds down to whatever I'm at now or before because it was obviously didn't all come off at once. I didn't have surgery. I didn't get a belly band. I didn't take any diet pills. I worked my ass off to get myself into physical shape. Like I was
Yeah.
not, I'm not advocating laziness, and nor once in the last years have I ever really sat and felt lazy. I just knew that, like, okay, to be able to be a productive worker and to do the things I'm capable of doing, like, I've got to be capable of doing that. And so that became my priority. And then once that happened, it was, okay, I'm going to work in the evenings, but in the daytime, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to spend as much human time as possible with my kids so I can repair that relationship, and then I thought, it's like, okay, here I am. This is what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, the next phase is going to be the professional phase. And I'm going to start really working on that. And then God was like, nope, I'm going to teach you spirituality. And that became my focus. And I was completely God stepping in. And now I'm like in a place where I'm like, I'm fairly balanced. And now I'm like, okay, now I can really focus in on the professional aspect of things. And then, there is that balance. But I think, God had a different plan than I did. And I had to learn the lessons I needed to learn to be where I'm at today. And I wouldn't change that for anything. And it's taken me a lot longer than I had hoped. Like 3 years is not a short amount of time, but in the grand scheme of 3 years to 43 years, it's not that long.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And the like, dude, the time would have passed anyways. So it's like, did you want to make progress or not? And
Yes. And I think
obviously you did.
yeah. And that's just it. I would never say that like, oh, just don't wait. Just wait for something to happen. You got to, I'm sure you know the band, The Devil Makes Three.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they have that song, help yourself, like, God will help those who help themselves. Like that's the truth. Like I'm sure you've seen that meme 100 times. That guy sitting on that capsizing boat and he's sitting there praying. He's like, I'm gonna wait for God to save me. And like, here comes a helicopter, here comes another but like person in a rowboat, here comes a life raft. He's all, no, no, like I'm waiting for God. And it's like, dude, you've just been sent 3 rescue. Like, where do you think that came from? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think that's just it. It's like you become aware of these little gifts, be it people or situations, and you just have to be intentional with those moments in time. And you know, like I used to be really big on goal setting. Now I'm just like, okay, here's my here's where I want to go. Now, how do I intentionally use the moments when they're presented to me to get to there? And I'm not super worried about like, oh, I need to have this done by 120 days from now or in 6 months. I'm like, okay, each time that it something presents it, like the woman in the gym when she came up and talked to me, I could have easily blown her off, but like something said, hey, speak to her. And I spoke to her, and then a job fell into my lap in a field that I wanted that I wasn't even looking for at the time. I was quite comfortable with working back in the restaurant. Like my life was comfortable. I was making enough money to barely get by, you know, but it was working with school, and I'm like, you know, things are okay. And then this happened, and now I'm making well more money than I've ever made. The biggest, I just got the biggest paycheck of my lifetime, you know.
That's
So, and I'm doing something I really enjoy, and I feel it like obviously like being a cook or a chef is service work, but it's not in service of others. It's in service of those that can afford the service.
yeah, it's not nearly the same thing.
Yes,
I
not nearly.
I love that, man. And just hearing you say like, I just got the biggest paycheck of my life, like, man, that fucking warms my heart, dude. That makes me
Dude,
so
you have
happy.
no idea how nice it was. Like, I paid my rent, paid my car payment, I paid part of my electrical bill, went grocery shopping, and to still have money left over. Like, dude, like that makes me really happy.
That's fucking legendary, man. That's literally the dream.
Right? Exactly.
Just to have like that all taken care of, and you're like, whoa, what's next? This
Yeah,
is
now I just get to go do it all again.
that's beautiful, man. I fuck, that's so cool, man. I'm so glad that you're able to just kind of pursue that whole thing for yourself. I think it's cool as well that you get to pass it on to others because it's I like meaningfully say it every single one of my episodes and that I do by myself, like in the solo episodes of just like the idea is to make yourself stronger and 1% better every single day, but to lift others along the way as well, like lift others up along the way as well,
Amen.
because
It's not a
there
selfish journey.
yeah. And I think that it's like it's a sign like dude, I'd say like that's like the Lord giving you a sign of like your biggest paycheck ever. Like things might get rocky from here, but clearly you're on the right path. Like there's no other sign that would that you'd have
I,
to receive.
dude, I 100% agree with you. And you know what's crazy is right before this job happened, the job I was working with prior, there was a chance that I could step into a management role and probably make about the same amount of money I'm making right now. And I'm like, man, this would be easy. I could stay here. I could manage this place, do that for a couple years, and like it's got a big enough name that I could go on somewhere and make, you know, 75 to $100,000 a year. And I'm like, do I even bother pursuing school? Like, is this what God wants me to do? And then I sat and had the Monday before this job fell in my lap. So it was a Monday. I went and hung out with my pastor from my church for like an hour, hour and a half, kind of just sitting at a picnic table having a talk. And we just talked about it. And it was just like, you know, God will show you what he wants you. Just lean on him and trust him. And then that next day, this woman comes to the gym and she sort of hit on me, and I'm like, hey, by the way, I just got a girlfriend. I appreciate it. But like, you know, but she's like, okay, I appreciate you being upfront with me. And we just started talking, and this job fell in my lap. So it wasn't like I went out and pursued it. It wasn't like I saw a job posting on Indeed or on Craigslist or anything like that. Like it was, dude, it was just God saying, hey, no, dummy, that's not what you're supposed to do. And I need you here. This is why you've lived through what you've lived through, so you can help other people. And now I'm doing what I'm doing because I was
Yeah.
intentional with my purpose. I'm intentional with my time. Like I tried to like, okay, is this a sign and this is something that's opening it up an avenue of growth, or is this something that I just need to ignore? And you know, sometimes I get it right and sometimes I get it wrong, but I'd say more often than not it ends up right because I'm trying to be very intentional with each one of my moments.
Yeah, and it's so cool. It's like, man, I've been that person too, especially like in a gym or like maybe walk into a bus stop or whatever it is where you're like headphones on, you don't really want to talk to other people. You're like, I just want to get my workout done. I'm here to focus. I'm here doing this. I'm here doing that. And to be grounded enough to just like interact with the other human beings around you. Like it's almost like a lost art now of like not talking to people, like it's so weird, but being present enough to not just like see the opportunity and like it's not even like when you have interactions with people, you're like, what can I gain from this person? But just like being present and grounded enough to just like interact with other humans. How many like times God will send other people into our lives as a
It,
way to redirect course. It's so crazy, man. And if you're
it,
not
exactly that, man. It is, dude. You just need we man, that was what you just said was very beautiful. Very
and man,
beautiful.
like and if you're not like present or grounded enough, like you won't see the signs. You won't be able to see like the sign or the person. Like you could have someone being like, dude, go left, go left, go left. And you're like, should I listen or go right? Like, like, or some people just keep wandering, like they don't even
Yeah,
see or hear the signs.
that's just it. It's because we're so blinded by everything, or we get like I'm doing this really cool devotional plan right now on building community and the importance of friendship because I tend to like be cynical and like, you know, I'll consider you a friend, but you live, 6 hours from me. Um, Marcus, who was on your show recently, is a friend, but he lives 4 or 5 states away. Like, um, it's hard to build friendships with people, especially as men as we get older. Like you are like, hey, here's the thing. Not everyone has to check each box. Like you got no one's ever going to be perfect. And you got to do this, this, and this. But like the friends that I do have, they're equally as busy, and it's hard to find time to nurture community because everyone's like, I got wives, I got kids, I got my workout routine, I've got my mental health routine, I've got my spiritual routine, and like, where do you find the time to build a friendship routine? And it becomes a challenge, and that's what this whole thing is talking about. Is that like one of the first myth was the very first myth to break on the very first day was just that like you're not that busy. Like you're not that busy. Like
Yeah.
like and like, and then the right and then it kind of talked about like the right people will fall into you. Like, a couple days later that's what it talked about. So like, look at Jesus and the disciples. Like those people didn't come to Jesus. Jesus went to them.
Yeah. And even then, they all had their own little flaws. They all had their own little thing going on, man. Like,
Yeah, like Matthew. Like like I mean like Matthew was despised. He was a tax collector. He worked for the Romans.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure, wasn't it like Paul as well was like persecuting Christians?
Well, yeah, Paul wasn't a disciple, but Paul was an epistle. But yeah, Paul
Yeah,
was Saul.
apostle. Yeah.
Paul was like a Pharisee's Pharisee. Like Paul,
Yeah.
that was Paul's job was to go hunt and kill Christians. And then
Yeah,
the dude
yeah.
ended up writing. Then the dude ended up writing like 2/3 of the New Testament.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I mean, and obviously like there's Judah, there's t tons of yeah, everyone had their flaws, man.
Yeah,
But
it, and that was it.
crazy.
That was it. He accepted people and met them where they were at. And that was another thing I kind of talked about. It's like people are going to have flaws, and that's okay. But just meet those people with where they're at, and then try to act like Jesus did. It's much
Yeah,
easier to
yeah.
read than it is to actually put into action.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, man. But I think you are on the right step. Like it's when you hear the stories of the New Testament of like who Jesus went to for healing, it's like he went to the lepers, he went to the prostitutes, he went to the people that were homeless and hungry and starving and desperate and the
Yep.
people that had betrayed other people and the people that were going to betray other people. Like it's like I think that what you're doing right now, it's a huge blessing for society to have you around, man.
That's something he said. When Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, he said something, and I'm horrible at quoting scripture, so I'm not going to try quoting the book or the verse. But he said something along the lines like, "The healthy don't go and see a doctor." Right? Like I'm here to heal the spiritually bankrupt, the spiritually corrupt. Like that's what he was there for, and I think that's where we need to be in service. Like, and I think that's why I always had some weird issue, like with being a chef or working in fine dining is like, yeah, I love that work and I'm naturally gifted at it, but like I'm not helping people who can't help themselves. Like I'm not helping the helpless or the lost. I'm helping the privileged, and that just seems like a waste of my time. And now I
Yeah,
get to help
yeah.
those that actually need help.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody, I think that this is my own personal belief. I think that everyone is here to be a tool for a different audience. I think that
Hmm.
everyone's, like we all have like different people that we connect with really well, and that people in certain situations will find us easy to be vulnerable to. And I think that that is like the idea behind all of life, is like to find out what audience you resonate with and where you want to listen from as well. Like it's like,
Agreed.
where do you want to drink your water from, but then where do you want to disperse your water and help water other people's gardens as well, man.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually how I ended up here because I journal a lot. And that's one of the things I kept asking God. I'm like for months, I'm like, show me my audience, show me my audience, show me my audience, show me my audience. And that's how I ended up with like within like a 6 day period. I think I had like 8 or 9 people reach out to me like, how'd you get sober? I'm like, okay, this can't like, all right, I see the writing on the wall. Okay, I'm not I may be dense at times, but I'm not thick.
Yeah, yeah.
Like okay, so I'm like, this is probably something I prayed on it for 2 or 3 days, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna just sign up for school. And I think that's I you can't compare trauma or you can't compare addictions, but I think um, it's really important to share our survival stories, and not for comparison or be like, oh well, I didn't do this and they did this better, but like because you never know who's listening, and you share those moments with authentic, transparency and a splash of vulnerability, and you can really change people's lives. You can really change what people think is possible. And
Yeah, yeah.
most things are possible. Like at this point, like I'm probably never going to slam dunk a basketball. Like I'm 43 years old. I'm only 6 feet tall, and I can't jump like I used to. Right? I'm never going to run a 9 second 100 meter dash. So like I'm not saying all things are possible. And at 43, I may be as strong as I was at 20, but my body doesn't feel like I do at 20. And like you just have to be willing to be accept the fact that like there's just a new better. It's never going to be as good as it was, but it can be a new better. It can
Yeah,
be a new
yeah.
best. It can be this
Absolutely.
season's best. It's you can't go backwards, but it can be this season's best.
Absolutely. Dude, I love that. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up, James.
Awesome, man.
Dude, I appreciate your time. I
Same
love
here,
your
man.
energy. I love the way you speak. I love who you are, man. You're a great human being, and I
I
think the
love you
world
too, buddy,
needs
and
more of you.
I really appreciate you putting me on. And I do. We don't necessarily have to do an episode, but it'd be great to just connect every couple, 2, 3 months and just check in with each other because community is important, man. And dude, you got just so you know, man, if you ever get in Oregon, you got a brother down here, and I'll open up my home to you, and we can go out and we can shoot all the trap you want right out my front door.
Dude, that's amazing, man. I love that.
Have I ever sent you pictures of my front yard?
No, dude, you haven't.
All right, I will. Well, as soon as we get off here, I'll send you a few. Like it sucks because there was a couple of huge forest fires, like just south of like southeast of me a little bit, but the winds have been coming like there for a while. It got really hot like 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and all the wind was coming out of the southwest, and so like I'm like had these epic mornings, but like I couldn't get any photos of the sunrises because I love getting up and like because it was just so hazy. Like it was great, but I couldn't get pictures of it because the like it looked everything looked like it was like filtered, and I'm like dude these because I wouldn't there's so much smoke in the air. There was days that like you wouldn't even see the sun until it like rose above the smoke line on the mountains.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll send you some photos of my front yard. It's pretty. I mean, I live in a little tiny single wide trailer with me and my 2 kids and my girlfriend, and like it's hard to find places to live around here right now, but man my what I'm surrounded by is dude, I got a little tiny creek that parallels my driveway. I got a big pond in my front yard. Like I don't have neighbors.
That's beautiful,
Like,
man.
and it's only like about 10 minutes in any direction to go get into to get gas or food or anything like that. So
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
I'd love to
I
come
like
down
it.
there and
Pretty
visit.
blessed. Pretty blessed.
I'd love that. Well, brother, we're wrapping this up. Do you have anything else you want to spit? You want to say to anybody? Any positive messages or anything like that?
Just believe in hope. It's like there is hope, and once you have that little sparkle and light of hope, then all things become possible with hope, and that you're loved.
Beautiful, man. I couldn't have said that any better myself, man. I'm grateful for you. I'm
Grateful for you too,
everybody,
brother.
man.
Yeah, man. All right. I appreciate you, dude.
I'll talk to you soon, brother. Much love.
All right. Sounds
Peace
good.
out.
Have a good rest of your day.
I was about to say the same thing. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, brother.
Amen.
Talk to you soon.
You bet. Bye.
Bye.